Devin, so bureaucrats from New Brunswick tourism took themselves on a taxpayer-funded European vacation. But that's not all there is to the story. Can you break this down for me?
Absolutely. So, in New Brunswick last year, the New Brunswick tourism minister and three senior officials went on a trip that would make Chevy Chase envious. It had them jetting off to the United Kingdom and France, costing taxpayers over $77,000 and includes 12,000 just for the deputy minister alone. So what were they doing? It wasn't trade shows, it wasn't conferences, it was mostly just sightseeing. They went to the itinerary included visits to the Windsor Castle, Stonehenge, the British Museum, the London Eye, the Palace of Versailles, all beautiful travel destinations. My wife and I managed to make to some of them last year. For example, fortunately for taxpayers, when I go on a vacation, I do it on my own dime, as do most Canadians. But these New Brunswick tourism officials decided to jet off on taxpayer dimes to some of these destinations. And, they claimed the trip would be valuable because they also met with some tour operators that they do business with back home in New Brunswick. The minister cited the inspiration from these tourist attractions to justify the travel, suggesting it could improve museum tours back home. I don't quite think that the $77,000 they spent got the results they were looking for.
No, and we can talk about those results in just a second here, Devin, but this is just so bizarre, right? Like a group of bureaucrats, and was there a minister there too? Did I?
There was three
Right.
officials and a minister, or the former minister of tourism now.
So you've got three bureaucrats and a flipping cabinet minister jetting off to Paris and London, hanging out at Stonehenge, visiting the Palace of Versailles, very swanky, I've heard, and billing taxpayers for that. Folks, when you take your family on a vacation, maybe you're going out of town this summer, do you get to bill your employer, which in this case is taxpayers, to go on that vacation? I sure as heck don't. I'm taking my partner to Europe this summer, and it's costing us a pretty penny. I think my boss would have some serious questions if a single dollar from that vacation showed up on my expense report. But there's more to this story, Devin, and this is where, folks, it gets really, really juicy, and dare I say, a little bit funny. Walk me through the deliverable they brought home from this European vacation.
So the tourism minister defended it. They were going over to meet with operators and they were going to sell, these operators would then sell the Europeans this version of New Brunswick. Except the version that these tour operators sold Europeans was a fantasy version of New Brunswick. It is one that was void of basic facts. Some of the European tour operators contract by New Brunswick's government, funded by taxpayers, actively were spreading false information on their ads. Let's take, for example, one ad claimed St. John was the capital of New Brunswick and Europeans should rush off to visit St. John. Except the capital city is Fredericton.
Sorry. New Brunswick tourism ads couldn't even properly identify the capital of New Brunswick.
And that's not all. They claimed as well that people should visit St. John because it is the largest city in New Brunswick. Unfortunately for these tour operators and for the taxpayers paying for it, the largest city is actually Moncton.
You can't make this up.
And it didn't stop there. Not only were they promoting cities incorrectly, they were promoting ghost attractions that don't exist anymore or are under long-term renovations. They advertised the Cherrybrook Zoo, closed since 2020. In fact, recent in the news, there's other developments going there. No zoo. There'll be no farm animals there except a bunch of angry bureaucrats by the looks of it. They advertised the Martello Tower. It's been closed for 8 years, and it's wrapped in scaffolding. I don't think this is what European tourists visiting New Brunswick are going to want to go see. And lastly, they advertised the New Brunswick Museum. Apparently, it's a great museum when it's open, It's closed since 2022 and it's not reopening until at least next year.
So Devin,
So,
just let me get this
yeah,
straight. They were telling Europeans, skip the Eiffel Tower this summer, give the Colosseum a miss, don't bother with the Vatican City. What you need to see is a couple construction sites and an empty museum in New Brunswick. Is
that
that was the sell?
Yeah, apparently so. And I can only, I've traveled with family. I know what it's like traveling with young ones, for example. Or I can only imagine the disappointment if you're dragging your children across the pond to go on a special vacation, and you show up to the Cherrybrook Zoo and it's nothing but construction and closed signs. So yeah, not the greatest activity I've seen from this government here in New Brunswick.
Oh, Devin, this is a head shaker, right? Like, I've seen bureaucrats taking expensive jaunts before, right? That's nothing new. We all know bureaucrats and politicians sometimes dip into the taxpayer piggy bank to treat themselves to some luxury vacations on our dime. I have never seen a provincial government get a tourism promotion campaign so dramatically wrong. Like, when you can't identify your provincial capital, when you can't identify the biggest city in your province, or even attractions that are open for that matter, like, heads should be rolling for this. If this was in the private sector, pink slips would be raining down from above if we delivered a deliverable that was this disastrously wrong.
Exactly. And it makes it even worse or even more insulting to taxpayers that they spent $77,000 on a trip to meet with these operators and see sites when they have, they have no system for fact checking what these operators are doing, or apparently not. And it's even unclear if the minister raised any issues or the department raised any of these issues with checking on these things when, while the meetings were happening or even afterwards. And in fact, it looked like that this was completely new to the department until the media broke the story to begin with. So, it's clear that something needs to change with the Department of Tourism in New Brunswick. Heads need to roll, and taxpayers should not be on the hook for massive vacations, quite frankly, on the taxpayer dime.
Well, and do they not have access to Google? While you were talking, Devin, I, as an experiment, decided how hard it would be to fact check one of these tourism ads. Within about a millisecond of typing capital of New Brunswick into Google, ding, 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 not St. John's. Anyways, Devin, thank you so much for joining the Waste Watch podcast today. Folks at home, let me know what you think down in the comments. $77,000 for a error-riddled tourism campaign and a luxury junket for a minister and a few staffers. Good use of taxpayer money for the folks over there in New Brunswick? I don't think so. Let me know what you think down below. Devin, thanks so much again, sir.
Thank you.